Thank you, Colin, and hello, everybody. I know some of you, not all of you, but I'm Graham Ross. I'm a lawyer mediator from the UK. I'm a recent addition to the board of ICODR, and one of my roles is to chair the membership committee. And therefore, I'm going to help out with these wonderful monthly, Colin? Membership meetings. And
yes, monthly.
I think it's so important, as I see it, that we're very, constantly in touch with people who've gone to the trouble and to join the ICODR. And I think it's going to be very important. And we can't always be meeting this regularly in person. We moan the fact that we're not having our conferences where we meet up. But this will be a good second best, I'm sure. Can I say that what I'd like us to do at the beginning is just try and share any sort of interesting news that people have, anything, any systems that they've come across, or anything that's coming out. I'll just mention something that happened recently that Colin, Chitu, and myself were involved in, which was a wonderful tournament that was organized in India by the the Pravin Gandhi College of Law. We are able to let you have, because the whole thing was recorded, and there's a very useful page with listing the various talks and presentations. So I think we can get that out to everybody, Colin, can't we? The links that we've been given. And but it wasn't just a conference. It went on for a week. It was an actual tournament. So there was students as well as lawyers and postgrads and qualified people in the profession. But the students were involved throughout the week in an actual tournament using ICODR and smart settle tools. So where they were given a very interesting and quite complex commercial dispute. The background, I think, went on for 2.5 pages. So it wasn't as simple. And it worked really well. And I think it's a sort of, I remember many years ago, Colin, and Merez, you may remember, I organized the first international competition in ODR, where we got, I think there were 12 law schools around the world, and they all competed to mediate a particular dispute. That was the first. It was about 12 years ago. I think it's about time we had the second and carried this sort of thing on. But what they did last week was truly amazing and different. So that and also coming up in India. So India is getting quite involved and starting to really get into ODR. Thanks, no doubt, I'm sure, to the work of Chitu. There's going to be an ODR week. I think it's the 15th or 16th of April, so it's coming up very shortly. I think I know I'm probably, Colin, are you booked in for a talk? Presumably there, I will, and that it'd be interesting the way that's organized, and maybe we can talk about and if anybody in the academic field is interested in putting up teams from the colleges, that might be one way to go. So before we bring in Seb, can I just ask, has anybody else got any news to share? We could do this every time.
Graham, it's the last week of April, the ODR Tech Expo.
Oh, thank you. Of course, and that's Alberto's in Argentina.
Yes.
What was that date, Merez, again?
26 to 29, I think it's the last week of April.
Yeah, so that's a huge global ODR online conference that fellow board member Alberto Lizivetsky will be organizing. And again, I suppose we have these links on the website, Colin. We can always do that, I'm sure. Thank you, Merez. Anybody else?
Graham, I just hope soon to be able to share the project that I've been working on for some time, our EquiSettle platform. We have our SaaS, our Mediator SaaS, just about ready to go. And then we'll be moving into the platform. And when you see the platform, hopefully someday you'll go, I know where that's from, I know where that's from, and I know where that's from.
Yeah.
Because we're taking parts that have sort of fallen off the wayside and reshaping them and bringing them back in with sort of a modern or today's twist on them. Things that we've learned, sort of built old pieces from lessons learned, and just see how that goes together. So that'll be a bit off.
What was that website address then, Jeff?
Well, you can go there now. It's not going to give you much information, but Equisettle, EQUISETTLE. So
I put it in the chat.
Pretty, it's embarrassing what you see there right now. It's just sort of a mock-up of a website, but
well, I won't go just yet.
Yeah, there'll be more in the future. So
you let us know. Great, thank you very much.
What type of disputes do you intend to settle on this platform?
So initially, low value, high volume. We'll be picking up some familiar pieces that you've seen before, but the SaaS is essentially a mediator SaaS. Those mediators become the backbone to the platform. The platform, folks can't resolve through the ODR piece. They get escalated up to a neutral. The neutral helps them work that out. The basis of that will probably be sort of MedArb. And then much like BetterHelp on the psychological types of platforms out there, we're hoping to have mediators and arbitrators just available for selection in that. State the type of dispute you're having. Here's a list. Here's what they can do for you. And we're able to sort that out, through an aggregator to get them to the right people.
So this is not a platform that mediator is going to look at and say, oh, this is threatening our work. This requires
right. They'll be able to add
mediators.
Exactly, to participate in and add to. So it has an ODR component. It also has a traditional component through online. Yeah.
Great. Well,
Jeff,
thank you very much for that.
You at a future ICODR meeting so you can show the platform off. I think that sounds great.
Perfect.
So I'll reach out to you about that.
Terrific. Anybody else before we move on? Nope. Okay. Now, right, let's move on. Seb, thank you very much for joining us. We're going to have a talk here from Seb Jenks of the Resolver Group. Now, many years ago, the Resolver Group was formed by James Walker, and I've seen it develop over the years. I love it, by the way. The original platform is one where you can upload your complaints. I'm always complaining. I love complaining. And the problem with complaining is trying to follow the conversations. How did I complain? Did I fill some form up on a website or whatever? Well, here you put it all on one website, and I can still go in now and look at complaints that I raised years ago and see what happened. What it was doing is putting you in touch with the right people at the company you're complaining at. And things have moved on. Seb, do you think you've been with them for some 6 years now? Yeah. And it has, is that right? About 5 or 6 years with the Resolver. Yeah, and previously it was about a wonderful way to actually manage your complaints and to create and help the communication with the company you're complaining about, and has become hugely successful with massive numbers of users. But now it's time to move on, and I think that's what Seb is going to talk to about by something called ICODR that Seb's in charge of, and this is where we're moving from complaints to resolving the complaints. Seb, take the floor.
Yeah. So, no, thank you for that, Graham. And I'll sort of give the background to Resolver Group shortly. And this is really sort of, we've actually been in the ODR space for about 6 years now. And this is us sort of coming out of stealth mode and announcing to the world what we've been doing over the last 6 or so years. So I'm now going to share my screen with you. And hopefully you can see.
Yeah.
Can anyone see that?
Yes, we can.
Excellent. So firstly, I want to give my thanks again to Colin and Graham for inviting me to present today's ICODR member call, and it's an honor to give this talk to so many distinguished experts in the field of ODR and ADR. To quickly introduce myself, I am Seb and I lead our online dispute resolution efforts as part of Resolver Group, and I have Nick with me on today's call, who is our senior
Seb,
product manager.
let me just interrupt for a minute. We're actually seeing your presenter view.
Are you?
So
Okay.
Yeah, if you want to swap it so we can see full screen.
Is that?
I think if you. Nope, we're still seeing.
No, you do
up there.
Slideshow, click slideshow, and from the beginning.
Yeah.
On the left, that's it. Click that.
Got it. And then I don't know if you have two monitors. Click swap display. Left, see there, that option.
I can just.
You have your notes, so I just wanted you to.
Is that better?
You may have.
No.
Sorry about the confusion. Yeah. I think if you click play from start one more time and then you click swap displays, it should be fine. That's my guess.
Let me just try and sort that out.
One more time. Thank you. I apologize. We
What
would have
you've
been
got
fine seeing it in the presenter view. I just wanted to let you know that that was what we were looking at.
What you've got it for is one side shows it to the audience, and then the notes is just what you see. But that's when you're doing an in-person presentation. So I can see the problem.
This is the thing about a call filled with online dispute resolution people. We're all eager to like, oh, well, click this, try that. Why don't you swap this place? Yeah. So.
Yeah.
A second, let me just try and sort that out.
I actually saw it the correct way at the end, right before he went off screen share. Yeah.
I think it's just that his notes were so small at the bottom that our age of eyes couldn't read them, which is fine.
Yeah, it's sort of in code, so we can't see it.
Try and sort that out now.
I will say, just while we're working this out, Graham, thank you for your introduction of Resolver Group. I think the user experience design for Resolver Group is the best of any consumer resolution platform I've seen in the world. I think that that's really their touchstone. You know, we talk a lot about human-centered design in ODR, and I think you're going to be really impressed because I've seen some of what Seb's going to share. It's very intuitive and very clear for consumers how they find their way into the platform. And if you ask anyone just in the UK, walk around, people know about Resolver. I mean, they've got a lot of awareness amongst the consumer community. So a lot of people go to Resolver first when they have a problem because it's such an intuitive resolution experience. So
I would agree with that. Yet to get lost on it. I think that's the test.
How's it going, Seb?
Yeah, hopefully nearly there.
Sorry to throw a wrench into things.
It's okay.
Yeah. So we're having these. Is it monthly, Colin? Or these the first week of the month? Is that it?
Yes, first Thursday. Perfect. Now we're seeing it. No. Thank you so much, Seb. That's great.
That's okay. Sorry about that. Oh.
I think somebody set you up on an April Fool's joke, I think, probably at the company.
I promise it wasn't me, Seb.
Everyone still see the screen. Yeah, okay, excellent. So just to start with a bit of background on Resolver Group, we were founded in 2014, as Graham mentioned, by James Walker, and we have two business units that sit under the group umbrella. Firstly, Resolver Consumer, which is the UK's largest independent resolution platform that helps consumers raise and resolve issues with organisations for free. We then aggregate and anonymise that data and provide it back to businesses, regulators and government departments as a value-added service. And I'll talk a little bit more about Resolver Consumer shortly. On the online dispute resolution side, previously known as Decider, Accord is our new rebranded and SaaS ODR platform that offers a fully online and end-to-end complaints and dispute resolution process. To tie the background of Resolver Group up, we're based in London, United Kingdom. There are about 50 of us in the group, and we're backed by Draper Esprit and IP Group, two European VCs, and have raised $22 million in seed and Series A to take our platform and online dispute resolution from the UK out to the world, and we're going through Series B funding at the moment now. Firstly, I'm going to sort of give you a run through of how Resolver Consumer works. So as a consumer, I can go to resolver.co.uk, type in the company I have an issue with, to which I'll then be asked to self-select and triage an issue from a range of options, and then be given my consumer rights on a particular issue, product or service back to me. I'll then be provided with a structured template so I can clearly explain to the business what happened, what the impact and detriment was, and what outcome I expect. And we as Resolver then ensure their complaint goes to the business and are constantly in dialogue and work with a number of key businesses and organizations to ensure that. Based on our data, we can also set consumer expectations. For example, I could be notified that on average, this business will take 5 days to get back to me. I will then be provided with a case file and a dashboard to manage and store all information, communication, documentation, and any notes, and provide reminders when a case can be escalated through internal business processes all the way to an ombudsman ADR scheme or whatever is appropriate. Now, today, our platform has facilitated over 6.4 million complaints. Over 80% of the population of the UK have visited Resolver, and over 6 million consumers engage with our brand every week, either through the platform or via the content we create in the media. We've also supported the resolution of over £750 million of complaints to date, and have a 96% rating on Facebook, with over 40% of our users coming from personal recommendations. What does this mean for the consumer? Well, compared to raising a complaint directly to an organisation, when raised through Resolver, consumers see an average of a 21% increase in satisfaction, a 29% faster resolution timescale, and customers who are fully satisfied with their resolution are 8% higher. Regarding the aggregated and anonymised data I mentioned at the start, the Department for Business, Energy and Industrial Strategy are a client of ours, and they use our data to understand where exactly businesses and sectors are performing well and where they have room for improvement. Now, that sort of gives you a brief overview of Resolver Consumer and the success we've had to date. And it's also worth mentioning we're now launched in India as well, and have an office based out of Delhi. We're looking at other locations as well, but I can't say more on that front at the moment. Now, moving on to why everyone is really here today and the world of online dispute resolution, I'm very excited to show you all the work we've done in ODR over the past 6 years. As well, some of you might have heard, Decider, we have really sort of been operating in stealth mode. And today is really the first day that we're opening the doors to our history with a formal announcement and media release of our new product called ODR coming after Easter. Now, firstly, our sort of journey in ODR started back in 2015 with the Traffic Penalty Tribunal. I'm going to talk you through our work with the Traffic Penalty Tribunal, who have transformed their adjudication service, driving significant savings both financially and in time and resources through the creation of the first truly online tribunal. As part of this digital transformation, the Traffic Penalty Tribunal partnered with Resolver Group in 2015 to deliver our online dispute resolution platform, Decider, branded by TPT as Phone. And there you can see how we've been in stealth mode. And by combining TPT's adjudication expertise and Resolver's ability to build intuitive consumer-facing applications, Decider was delivered as a best-in-class solution to the tribunal. Regarding the background of the Traffic Penalty Tribunal, they provide independent adjudication for appeals against penalties issued for parking, minor traffic, and road toll offences in England and Wales. The Traffic Penalty Tribunal deals with around 40,000 appeals per annum and has around 30 adjudicators working remotely, supported by a small administration team. The TPT service deals with two key user groups. One is members of the UK public who have received a penalty they wish to appeal, and the other is local authorities and Highways England who issue the penalties, and there are over 300 local authorities that issue those penalties to motorists across England and Wales. Just to touch upon some of the challenges that the Traffic Penalty Tribunal faced before we partnered with them, was the commitment to deliver swift, intuitive processes proportionate to determining minor traffic cases, but responsive to increased expectation for the public to be able to access services online. Reduced budgets from local authorities who fund and engage with TPT following the age of austerity, and the UK government's policy of digital by default service design and delivery, developing scalable processes to embrace new appeal streams, resulting in increased number of cases for TPT adjudicators. And finally, it's worth mentioning that they had the realization that by embracing technology, cases could be decided through a continuing engagement rather than traditional bureaucratic processes. So since its inception, the Traffic Penalty Tribunal has always been driven by the guiding principles of accessibility, transparency, proportionality, velocity, and finality in the way it provides adjudication, and by embracing new and emerging technologies, always with the experience of the user at the centre, which is where we come in, the organisation has been able to channel these principles into a revolution in the way it manages appeals. So the Traffic Penalty Tribunal trialled a number of digital case management systems and digitalised ways of working, and having learned from these experiences, the organisation commissioned Resolver to deliver Decider ODR to support its transformation ambitions back in 2015. To touch what Decider was required to do, we were required to provide the public with an online service accessible 24/7, offer an intuitive user interface that connected all parties, so the Traffic Penalty Tribunal, the local authorities and the public, provide a scalable solution that allowed the Traffic Penalty Tribunal to handle increasingly complex caseloads and enable new workflows to support new appeal types. We also enabled assisted digital services to coexist, supporting those who prefer or cannot to engage online, and replaced 2 legacy systems that were previously used to manage appeal. And regarding the deployment, we then worked with the Traffic Penalty Tribunal to ensure a smooth adoption across all their stakeholders. Now, what were the results of the transformation? So as they moved from a mainly paper-based process to online, they saw a reduction of 85% of postal costs, an estimated 46% reduction in the cost per case, $6 million of savings to local authorities over the first 2 years. 90% of decisions are now made online, and we've taken the average case resolution time from 3 months to 78% resolved in 28 days and 12% resolved in 1 day. Regarding the impact that this has had on the wider justice sector in the UK, a presentation of the TPT system and key learnings was given to the University of Oxford Roundtable of Justice Delivery just prior to COVID, to Sir Ernest Ryder, former Senior President of the Tribunals, Lord Briggs, Justice of the Supreme Court, who's given the next presentation, and former Lord Chief Justice of England and Wales, Lord Thomas, as well as numerous judicial, academic and corporate stakeholders with an interest in online dispute resolution and how it can transform the courts in the UK. Regarding some of the recognition and praise the product has received, Resolve in the Traffic Penalty Tribunal won the Excellence in Technology Award in the England Transport Awards in 2016. The Administrative Justice Council Academic Panel in 2019, the Social Entitlement Chamber President Judge Atkin discussed the continuous online hearing process of the TPT as the holy grail of administrative justice reform. Professor Richard Susskind at the International Forum of Online Courts in 2018 said that the Traffic Penalty Tribunal is a pioneer of online judging, using a form of continuous hearing that is planned to lie at the heart of the tribunal work, and in his most recent book, Online Courts and the Future of Justice, describes TPT as having the longest standing online public dispute resolution system in the world. Finally, the Right Honourable Lord Carnwath, former Justice of the Supreme Court, having seen the platform a few years ago, stated that he was impressed by the efficiency and fairness and the effective interaction between the parties. Now, regarding the actual product itself, I have a few screenshots to show you. So firstly, we have the Traffic Penalty Tribunal operational dashboard here, which gives the case reference, type, specific appeal information, who it's assigned to, the status, next action, and when the next action is due. We also here have an example case summary with the next actions, appeal details, and along the top we have messages, notes, evidence, hearings, decisions, communications, and history. Here we have how evidence submission takes place, where the appellant can add audio files, letters, images, registrations, or PCN evidence. And finally, here is the hearing screen, where the appellant has the ability to arrange a hearing, but they're notified that the adjudicator will be able to decide most cases without the need for a formal hearing, and then that will be quicker. Now, we then rolled out our ICODR platform into the Scottish Courts and Tribunal Service as part of their first tier tribunal to cover penalty charge notices issued by several councils within Scotland for parking contraventions and 3 councils for bus lane enforcement notifications, meaning that ICODR platforms now cover most minor traffic offences in Great Britain. And on to our next major case study. This time it's with, let's go back, sorry, with Ombudsman Services. So just to start with a bit of background, Ombudsman Services deal with unresolved complaints between consumers and companies across the telecommunications and energy sector here in the UK. Resolver Group won a tender in 2017 to deploy its online dispute resolution platform Decider, branded as OS by Forseti and then DMS. The overall objectives were to improve the overall user experience for consumers, businesses, and internal OS users, increase the effectiveness and efficiency of the service, and provide OS with data to inform business strategy and decision makings. What did we deliver? Well, we developed a workflow that facilitated and automated the high-level processes of create, assess, investigate, and adjudicate, whilst capturing meaningful data to support improvements in productivity and insights for companies and regulators. We also customized our ICODR product so that it maximized self-service for both OS operational teams and business users, conducted extensive user testing to ensure effective usability of the platform and buy-in from key stakeholders, and worked with OS to define an appropriate rollout plan from a technology and operational stakeholder perspective. Decider ODR was then deployed into live use in March 2018, with the application bringing together three parties, the consumer, the company, and Ombudsman Services themselves, to reach a resolution on a consumer's complaint in the most transparent way possible. What were the results of implementing our product in Ombudsman Services? Well, they saw a 30% reduction in telephone calls to their helpline, as users can self-serve and be automatically updated on the status of their case through active and passive guidance, an estimated 23% reduction in the cost per resolved case, 13% increase in settled cases, an estimated $3 million in operational cost savings to date, and the ODR platform is scaled to support over 150,000 complaints per year. Our next adventure in ODR took us into the world of financial technology and open banking, which in a nutshell is the framework and infrastructure that allows you to give certain providers access to your financial information and is revolutionizing the financial services industry in Europe and now across the world. Open banking opens way to new products and services, helping customers and small to medium-sized businesses get better deals. It also gives customers a more detailed understanding of their accounts and can help them find new ways to make the most of their money. One effect of this revolution is increasing number of transactions, and that means more customer complaints and disputes. Accordingly, the Open Banking Implementation Entity released a tender for an online dispute management system in order to comply with requirements in European legislation regarding customer redress. And we responded to and beat MasterCard to deploy our ODR platform into the Open Banking Implementation Entity, and the system went into live use last year. Now we're still sort of tracking the results of that implementation and digitalization, and it's only been recently fully deployed, but some of the key benefits are that the product was customized and designed with open banking members at the heart of it, has the ability to securely and safely connect multiple parties at once in a fully managed solution to resolve complaints and disputes. And I'm pleased to tell you that the 9 largest banks in the UK, what we call the Competitions and Markets Authority 9, so that's Santander, HSBC, Lloyds Bank, RBS, Barclays, Thanks Bank, Nationwide, Bank of Ireland, and the Allied Irish Banks are all signed up to our ODR platform to resolve financial complaints in an open banking environment. So what does this all mean? Well, today, and I was talking to Colin yesterday, and he agreed that all of our work that I've just taken you through makes us the biggest ODR platform operating in Europe today, with over 500,000 cases processed through our ODR products and platforms and over $10 million of savings to date across our client base. Now, so that's sort of what we've done today. And just to reiterate, this really is the first time we've opened up our doors to reveal the full extent of what's been going on inside the factory. And I couldn't think of a better audience to do that with. So thank you again, Colin and Graham, for this invite and opportunity. So now sort of on to the future, we're coming out of stealth mode. We've rebranded as ICODR Online Dispute Resolution, which will be formally announced and released to the media in the next couple of weeks. And I'm going to tell you a bit about the new product now. So our new product strategy is to move away from highly customized online dispute resolution software, which was what Decider was, to a more traditional SaaS approach with a best practice workflow and configurability to suit client-specific needs. You know, regarding our competitive advantage from the work we've done with Decider and Resolve a Consumer, it's pretty clear to us that complaints ADR was where our competitive advantage was centered. And I hear a lot of other ODR platforms say that they can cover off every use case, every dispute, and can be implemented into every organization or sole practitioner that does ADR. I'm quite happy to sit and tell you today that this is not the approach that we've taken. We focused on building the MVP for this product to be tailored for enterprise complaints ADR. And I'm not saying that it can't be implemented for other use cases, but that's where the focus has been. And I'll come on to further sort of the world of dispute shortly, as there's obviously enormous scope outside of complaints as well. So accordingly, our mission for the MVP of ICODR ODR is to help organizations that resolve complaints transform the experience by offering an ODR application that makes it simple for individuals, efficient for organizations, and transparent for everyone. How we've done this? Well, last summer, we embarked on a customer discovery program with the aim of finding out how to make the experience simple, efficient, and transparent, and I will talk to that now. So since last summer, we've been working with 8 UK ombudsmen and ADR providers on and off our customer discovery program, which represent the gold standard of complaints resolution in the UK. I can't say who they are due to NDAs, but this will give us the potential to have about 500,000 complaints per annum go through ICODR ODR. Regarding the discovery approach, as a company, Resolver Group has always believed that products built with a deep understanding of their users delivers value quickly, efficiently, and continuously. And at the heart of the customer discovery program is therefore user research. The users involved in the ADR process, from complainants to goods and service providers to case handlers, mediators, investigators, and adjudicators, are the people who know what the problems are, the goals and challenges, even if they cannot explicitly describe them. So the discovery program really aimed to understand their users, identify key themes across the market, and to ensure that the product truly works for all. We conducted hours of user interviews with all the ombudsmen last year, and we're currently going through the testing and iteration with them with a view to start implementing the full MVP of Accord ODR into the ombudsman this quarter. Also, off the back of the user research we did last year, we released an informal report titled An Understanding of UK Complaints Resolution that has been shared with the selected UK Ombudsman and other ADR providers, and summarises our key findings from the interviews we did with our internal staff users, the 3 user key goals or jobs to be done, and 706 pain points across the market that ODR technology can help resolve. It's not an academic or research report, but we do have a version for public consumption if anyone is interested in reading it. So I just want to take you through the high-level workflow we have built and are building for Accord ODR. So from the left to the right, the initiating disputant can raise their complaint, dispute, or case online. The organisation then has an evaluation and triage module available to them, and if accepted, the responding disputing party is then automatically asked to respond to that. The case can then go on to the next module, which facilitates the parties to negotiate to a consensual resolution. And if that fails, the case automatically moves on to mediation or conciliation, where a third party helps the disputants to reach a consensual resolution. It's also worth saying that if the mediator looks at the case and decides it's not worth going into mediation, he can then or she can then send it on to adjudication or, for example, or another step in the process. If consensual resolution is achieved, then the case is automatically resolved, and if it fails, it can move on to investigation and then some form of determination, be it adjudication or arbitration, where a formal and binding decision is made. Now, whilst complaints is our sort of competitive advantage, and that is where the MVP has been designed and tailored for, we know that complaints are just one type of dispute, and at the heart of all disputes, sits detriment and redress. So we thought we'd take that ethos and dip our toes into the wider world of disputes and see what comes of it. And it therefore gives me great pleasure to announce today that Resolver Group has been selected as an enabler for a Singapore government-wide transformation project to make public services accessible and maximise the use of limited resources through its new product, Accord ODR. There aren't many better organisations or governments to dip your toe into, very much at the deep end, but that's what we like to do, than the Singapore government, and we're very pleased to be given this opportunity by them as they move into the world of ODR. So where we started within the Singapore government, well, that's within the Tripartite Alliance of Dispute Management, or TADM. TADM is jointly set up by the tripartite partners of the Ministry of Manpower, the National Trades Union Congress, and the Singapore National Employees Federation to help employees and employers manage their employment disputes through negotiation and mediation. We launched Accord ODR to the Singapore government about 3 weeks ago to facilitate the disputing parties' exchange of information, evidence and documents, and participate in a guided 2-party discussion and negotiation, as well as multi-party discussions with a mediator with a view of reaching a settlement to resolve the dispute between employee and employer. One of the areas of success criteria that we hope to meet with the Singapore government, well, that's 50% of cases self-resolved at negotiation, 75% of cases resolved without the participants having to go to visit TADM for a physical mediation in person, reduce the mediator time spent on a case by 50%, reduce average end-to-end case duration by 50%, and have only 15% of cases escalated to the employment tribunal thereafter. So you can go to the TADM website, it's live, you can take a look at and see a bit more about what we're doing on that front and the 2 stages of e-negotiation and e-mediation, which Accord ODR is facilitating within the Singapore government to date. And that is sort of really it for the presentation. Nick and I would be delighted to answer any questions, and it's a great opportunity for us to come out of stealth mode and present all the work within ODR to date on our side over the last sort of 6 years. One final thing to mention is post-Series B funding, we'll be looking to put together an advisory panel for Accord ODR. We have some heavy hitters in the world of ODR of the UK lined up, and I'm interested in expanding that worldwide. So if anyone is interested in joining our advisory panel and wants to hear more, then just reach out to me at seb@resolvergroup.com and we can have a further conversation. But yeah, thank you again for giving me the opportunity to present, and I hope you found that interesting with regards to what we've been doing over the last 6 years in the ODR space and beyond with the Singapore government and the Ombudsman on Accord.
Thank you, Seb. And I have to congratulate you and your colleagues at the sheer energy and drive that you've obviously given to developing this work that you've been doing. It's very, very impressive. Before, if I could just mention one question somebody raised in the chat. The slides were difficult to read because of the size. If it's possible to let us have the actual slides so we can. Thank you very much.
Just send them to me, Seb, and I'll circulate them. Yeah.
Thanks, Colin. Can I just open up with one question about the mediation module there? Is there anything you can tell us about how that will actually operate? Is there any consensus building in the technology, or is it the management of the mediation by asynchronous text messages, or what is the process for the mediation?
Yeah. So at the moment, the product is centered around asynchronous communication. So it's secure messaging. They can send proposed resolutions. The mediator can facilitate the parties to a consensual resolution or conciliator. On the roadmap is moving into sort of more synchronous communication. So telephony and video conferencing integrations within the platform. But at the moment, mediation is done by asynchronous secure messaging and proposing resolutions. I don't know if Nick, you want to add anything onto that? But...
Okay, thanks. Can I open it up to the floor for further questions to Seb?
I've got one, Graham.
Thanks,
thank you so much, Seb. This is very impressive, and I think you can see from the comments in the chat, everyone, it's really amazing the size and the scale of what you've tackled, and it's wonderful to have this out in the marketplace. I think one of the unique origin stories that you have for ICODR is that it grew out of Resolver and Resolver Group. And I'm sure you've learned so much from the Resolver side of the equation. I was wondering if you could sort of draw a line between the two platforms. What lessons did you learn from the Resolver consumer-focused side that you've brought to the ICODR platform? And that's for Nick as well, just to sort of think about how that origin might make you differ or have some sort of special sauce compared to some of the other ODR platforms that are out there in the marketplace.
Nick, do you want to pick that one up?
Yeah, hi. Thanks, Colin. That's a great question. Yeah, I guess it primarily focused around an understanding that you have users with different levels of either agency or different levels of understanding of how to even engage in any online process, be that explaining a complaint or engaging with another party in dispute resolution. So I think that's been one of the main parts carrying through from our work with consumers. Building a product that can be quite complex, so to make it simple and usable for your average Joe, I guess. Something that is guided, something where there is trust built as quickly as possible, transparency. I think those are the key pieces that we took across into both the decider work and then very much in the ICODR work. I'd say those are the key elements.
Thank you.
It's around sort of like, it's almost reducing barriers to make it more accessible from an ease of use point of view.
Thank you very much. Anybody else have some questions?
I have more. Let me ask one more, and then other people have to get their courage up. It looks like Mark might have one in a second too. But I also, a lot of buzz these days is around algorithmic resolutions, whether or not that's sort of structured with very simple human written rules or maybe growing into potentially machine learning and artificial intelligence. Do you have any plans around that? Have you done any experimentation in that area? Again, that Nick may know more about that than Seb, but.
I can sort of touch upon that and then sort of hand that over to Nick. But so obviously we don't have any, well, ICODR's just gone live 3 weeks ago, so limited data going through that, and we need data to do ML and AI off the back of that. But we do have a data science team in Resolver, mainly sort of doing stuff with the Resolver consumer data, and we built 2 algorithms to date. One is a vulnerability identifier. So, I mean, vulnerable consumers is a massive issue over here in the UK at the moment, and the regulators are throwing a lot of weight behind customers who are vulnerable. And the Financial Conduct Authority released a report a few weeks ago to actually say 51% of the United Kingdom can be classified as situationally vulnerable. So it's a big thing going on over the UK about vulnerable consumers. I think it's quite big in Australia as well. So we built an algorithm based off our data to identify a complaint or dispute for 16 different types of situational vulnerability. The other algorithm we built is a topic classification algorithm. So when a consumer goes onto Resolver, they select their complaint, but they might have more than one issue within that overall complaint. So our algorithm picks out the multiple issues within an overall case or dispute and identifies that. So those are sort of the two things we hope to move across to Accord, but I can let Nick sort of talk about where he sort of sees the ML and AI piece coming in on Accord.
Yeah. So yes, there is essentially, if you almost take it to its conclusion, and in the future is you're finding with some of the kind of settlement tools, which I think were mentioned earlier, the kind of that high volume, low complexity solutions. And it's almost getting to that point as well, but along a journey and understanding the elements that make up an understandable dispute is what's key. And that comes with understanding the data and getting over time what constitutes a good dispute. And so that's where a lot of the work we've been doing with previous clients around trying to abstract what is common across domains and across different types of disputes. Seb mentioned it. It's around how do you get sometimes how do you get users to explain what detriment or what impact they have suffered in an easy way online? How do you get them to break down and explain what they feel is, or to think about redress in a fair and reasonable way? Those are the elements which, once we start to understand those, when we build up data picture with Accord, we'll then start to understand what the elements that constitute a good dispute that provides enough information potentially to start mediation or investigation would be. That then, the best example that I can think of that is kind of a roadmap piece that will help us with is personalizing that creation of the dispute in the first place. So if we understand the elements that are needed to make a good dispute, we can start using natural language processing and machine learning models to make a personalized journey for those users who might not have a high level of skill in explaining their disputes into a much more structured, into a personalized experience to get the best explanation of what their dispute is. So that's an example of where we're going with AI and NLP and machine learning models.
So would there be, I mean, we hear about machine learning, but I'm interested in human learning. And it sounds to me from the sheer scale of the disputes that you're dealing with, that there must be opportunities that all of that data can help generate guidance to traders, to retailers, how to nip and have complaints in the bud so they don't actually develop into disputes. Is that on the, are you looking that aspect as well? Or perhaps tell me we've already got that.
Yeah, that's an interesting, because I think, Graham, that takes in the consumer side of things as well, and almost the changing the markets as well. So yes, I see that being on the journey from an Accord perspective, because if you have, in a perfect world, from all that volume of data and understanding of data, a way to get a very high quality, personalized, potentially complex dispute from a user, then you have all that data available. You could surface things like, we are 90% confident that an offer of X or Y redress to this detriment would settle this case. It's around, I think for us, we'd only be looking to augment it, so to as you said, Graham, to guide. So potential prospects say, this is a settlement that we're 90% sure would happen. There's also cases X, Y, and Z that are quite similar to this one. If you wanted to have a look at those in terms of your mediation or adjudication or investigation.
Yeah, well, I'm also thinking of early alerts to something wrong with the product. I'm thinking in parking, I mean, I suppose a fairly common response is I didn't see the sign that said I couldn't park here, or I didn't see the sign that said I'm only allowed to park for 2 hours. With the data that's coming through, there may be messages that help better practice of where you place signs, for example. And I'm thinking of all that. In a sense, it's sort of, you're cutting off, you're reducing the flow of disputes and work for your business. But I can see tremendous value once you're dealing with the sheer scale. But thank you. Thank you. I think, was it Richard had a question? I'm trying to look. You need to unmute, Richard. Oh, I hate these.
Yes, that's fine.
I hate these things where you never get an opportunity to say, please unmute. I've got it. I've done it today.
I did submit, Graham, a question about the extraordinary success rate and cases resolved without escalation at 94%. That seems to really want to know more about the process to that point. I understand that some of it may be the referral out to arbitration earlier on in the process, but even still, I was wondering how the involvement of the personalized interaction with mediator, how that's been a learning curve and where that's at.
With 94% success rate with regards to what, sir?
Sorry. Well, your success rate is so amazingly high. I was wondering how it was that the percentage was obtained, and whether the data that you do have and that you were referring to, what characteristics of the mediator and the personal interaction with the third party mediator has helped.
And Richard, if I could add, are we talking here by resolved about a complaint being withdrawn, or, I mean, at the moment, you don't have a court result which will have a resolution in it, if only adjudication. So every case gets resolved one way or another. So when you say resolved and resolver, which is do you mean that there's 94% of complainants say it's been resolved, I've withdrawn it, or it just closes? What do you actually mean by resolved in that context?
So I think the 94% was our rating the consumers had given us. So it wasn't actually anything about successful resolution. I think the one stat we do have is with the Singapore government, and that they want 85% of their complaints to be resolved through mediation. And if mediation fails, it will then go on to the employment tribunal.
I see.
That wasn't actually about the success of resolution through the platform. That was just about our rating of resolving consumers. So,
okay, so that answers your question, Richard.
But do you want to come in on to answer some of that?
Yeah, no, but it's an interesting question though. So ultimately, and again goes to the data, we're very keen, or we've been building ICODR to make sure that the data is almost as, it can go to a small unit, I guess you'd call it. So if you'll know if a case or a dispute was closed or resolved, different categorizations. So that can be configured in different ways to say, well, when we close it, why are we closing it? Is it because the parties have not engaged and we're taking it outside to another system, or resolved means that both parties have either accepted the settlement that's been issued online. So that's another piece of the the product. So yeah, there's definitely different ways of cutting how it works for the particular provider of that ADR service.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, anybody else?
Yes,
Chip in?
I have a question related
There
to
is.
that issue that was just discussed. I was curious to know whether your annual publication of data reports also about the way the disputes were settled. So it's not only, let's say, 50% of cases settled, but how were they settled? Were for instance, the clients refunded, or did they get a replacement of a product? Just to give you a simple example, in order to offer predictability to the users when they see such a report. So that's the first question. And the second, I'm curious to know, how do the courts perceive your services, and do they promote them on their court's website, on the court's website? Because it's amazing to see that cases can be settled easily and fast. And obviously that's very helpful for the courts for their backlog. So I was curious to know whether there's any support from the courts also.
Nick, do you want to pick up one and I'll pick up two?
Yes, I think probably, Rez, the first thing on the annual reports is we produce annual reports from Resolver Consumer. We haven't started yet doing the annual reports on the Accord data, so I won't be able to speak about our trends and analysis in the consumer report data, I think, if that's what the question was regarding.
Yes, actually, this was it. Actually, to understand, yes, how the disputes were resolved and the way it was resolved, in order to give, again, some information to the users, not just about numbers, but about the way it was resolved.
I see. So we haven't started reporting yet, but the kind of things we're looking at are, well, because I mentioned we go down to a small piece of data, so kind of that involves the messages sent, the size of messages, the number of files on a case, a dispute. We can then start cutting up that data to say this particular provider or this particular disputant or dispute party resolves cases quicker than others. So let's dive into that and see, is it the fact that there are less documents, or what type of documents are being uploaded, what type of messages, how many characters? So it's not quite answering your question directly. It's almost the potential for being able to answer those questions is going to be there.
And the second piece around the courts and tribunal space. So we are already implemented into the Scottish Courts and Tribunals service, which sits out of HMCTS. I mean, we've been talking to HMCTS for 5 or 6 years. HMCTS were a client of ours on the Resolver side as well. I think there's a renewed interest in ODR in HMCTS. So Jeffrey Voss, who's head of civil justice in the UK, recently gave a presentation, I think last week, on integrating ADR into the court processes. He's identified 14 different areas that he wants to see ADR being integrated into Her Majesty's Courts and Tribunal service. So I think the judges at the top, there's renewed interest. I think at an organisational level, there's renewed interest as well, and we'd love to do something with HMCTS. And the other sort of piece is in Singapore, the work we're doing with the Singapore government. If cases aren't resolved through mediation, they are escalated to the employment tribunal and become litigious. So that's the other opportunity for us directly off the back of the work we're doing with the Singapore government, is to then put this in the tribunal space in the employment piece.
Okay.
So, say more interest from the courts on this, but ADR, not litigation.
Thank you. Is that an answer, Mirez? Thank you.
That's fine. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, Mike, you have a question?
Yeah, I was just wondering on the mediation piece, who are your mediators? Where do they come from? How are they paid? And could you say a little bit about that?
Yeah, so we just provide the technology. That's all we're ever going to do. We don't actually provide any mediators, adjudicators, or arbitrators. So we implement our technology into organizations who do have the mediators, adjudicators, or arbitrators. So we're simply a technology supplier. We don't offer any actual ADR services, so to speak. So the Singapore government employ their own mediators.
Right.
Platform is implemented in the Singapore government, and their mediators use our platform.
So your process, when it gets to the mediation piece, for example, in the Singapore situation, they provide the mediators,
Correct. Yeah, and that will always be the case. We don't have any plans to actually provide any ADR services, so to speak. We're just going to provide the technology to facilitate those processes online.
Mm. Mm. Is it possible for us mediators to look at that part of the platform and try it out and see how comfortable we are with it?
Yeah, if people want to drop me an email, I'll put it in the group now, and I'm more than happy to take you through the products that we built.
I think on that point, we're also sort of quite, I think, honest and transparent in where we're at as well, with our sort of plans. And as Seb mentioned, we are at the kind of, I guess, enterprise end at the moment, with a view to moving into a place where we can offer ICODR further down the road to potentially, to small and medium-sized or individual mediators as well. So that's something for the future. But for the time being, kind of the now and next, we're looking at that sort of enterprise piece where those providers are also delivering the mediators and adjudicators as well.
So Graham, I think we have time for one more question. Can we go to Meyer?
Very much. So our organization is a nonprofit. We do have a contract with the Court of Los Angeles Superior Court to do all civil mediations, either online or in person. What's interesting is in most, one of the areas that is backing up in civil cases are personal injury cases. What's interesting about personal injury, if you've done personal injury cases, there's a kind of a window where you almost a template of the type of injury and the amount of damage, et cetera, where I'm wondering whether in your program for using artificial intelligence, you actually develop a database of outcomes. For example, we have a reporting system of trials and outcomes of all these personal injury cases, and we know what the parameters are, and we know what the probable outcome is. I'm just wondering if something like that can be built into Resolver so that people could use it to have a better expectation of what their case is worth and the probability of outcome based on the data, as opposed to gut reactions of some attorney that probably doesn't know what the outcome might be. And it seems to me that having knowledge of the data, which tells you what the probability is of your outcome, you're going to be in a better position to make that decision as a client and an attorney, or as a mediator. You have a powerful tool for convincing somebody why the case should be settled within these parameters. So the question is whether your AI, whether your database will be able to absorb that kind of information and put it to work to predict are the probabilities of outcomes of, let's say, personal injury cases in particular.
Thanks, Maya. So I think if I kind of take that in two parts, the personal injury as a second part. So yes, essentially it's a continuation of the piece that Graham mentioned earlier around outcomes and settlements. It's once that we get that building and understanding of the data, then you can identify within that data particular pieces of data or labels or parts of the language which would indicate particular themes or likelihood of, I guess, bands of settlement, rather than I don't see this ever being this is exactly what should happen, because it doesn't feel completely right to me. There should be a level of sort of skilled human intervention, but presenting those settlement outcomes and presenting those possibilities. And I mentioned earlier about the personalized journey for someone who is raising a dispute online. And if we have that database that helps build natural language processing that will help that user who, and this is also addressing another question I saw in the chat around accessibility. So simple language, simple questions, breaking it down, that will help even at that point potentially to say, this is what, based on the information you provided with us, this is what seems to be a fair and reasonable outcome based on X, Y, or Z You know, do you want to progress to mediation, or do you want to progress to adjudication? So yes, Maya, essentially that. In the second part, which is the personal injury, we don't know enough about that, those disputes, but we would want to find out more about the particular components of personal injury claims and cases. But there's nothing to stop that happening. It would just be an understanding of that domain and those types of disputes.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I think there may be one or two other questions still. If we can, we'll have to draw it to a close now, but if we can send those to you guys, and perhaps we could have some replies we can share with everybody then. Well, thank you very much for that talk. I'd like to, perhaps I mentioned before that I am a big fan of the original Resolver complaint handling, not resolving, but just the ease in which you can put your complaints, because I love making complaints. I just want to leave you with one story as to why I just love the system. So I was traveling from Liverpool to London and back in a day for a business trip, and I planned to use the Wi-Fi, and the Wi-Fi hadn't been turned on, and I won't go through the whole story. So I complained on Resolver, and I got an email from the rail company, which was Virgin at the time. They've lost the franchise now, not because of this. But anyway, they wrote back and said, "Wolfie, sorry your train was late, Mr. Ross. Here's a voucher for £30. So I wrote back and said, "You haven't read my complaint. I didn't complain. The train was actually spot on when it arrived in London. I was complaining that there was no Wi-Fi until I asked them to put it on, and that was 5 minutes before Euston." I waited and got a reply back on the Resolver website. Very quick, very quick. "I'm sorry, Mr. Ross, your train was late. We've got so many complaints, we can't deal with them all, but here's a voucher for £40. So I wrote another time. I'm saying, well, nothing about the train. I congratulate you on arrival dead on time. My complaint is about the Wi-Fi. I waited and then get a third reply. "I'm awfully sorry your train was late, Mr. Ross. Here's a free ticket for your next trip." I called it a day there and felt very satisfied with the service. I don't know if it always happens, but anyway, I'll try it again. Thank you everybody for attending this. Colin, when's the next one? Is it like the first Thursday of every month, or
First
what?
Thursday in May. So you'll all be getting a notification from me about that.
Right.
I think it's the 6th, but it's the same time,
And
10
that's
a.m.
Lord Briggs.
First Thursday, and it'll be Lord Briggs. So you'll get an email about that soon. But Graham, thank you for hosting. Seb, Nick,
Right.
Thank you for the presentation. This is great. We'll be in touch with slides and a link to the video soon.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye, everybody.
Take care, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Stay
Thank
well.
you. Fantastic.
Bye.
Bye.